Jaxson Dart is the key to changing Lane Kiffin's big game rep. We'll tell you what we mean.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Rebel fans. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a tenure veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we're diving into Lane Kiffin's track record in big games. Historically, Kiffin is just 1-11 against top five teams, with that victory coming against Oregon way back in his SC days. But this season, that could change. The secret weapon, Jaxson Dart, with a dynamic group of playmakers like Trey Harris, Ulysses Bentley, Juice Wells, Caden Prieskorn. This is becoming Dart's team, and that could be the game changer when the Rebels face a top five opponent. Stay tuned, Rebels. This season is shaping up to be something special, and don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, hotty toddy, right? This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. Don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC, Zach Blackerby at Locked On Auburn. Do an excellent job giving you different perspectives on college football, the SEC, and yes, even Ole Miss. Everybody knows how I feel about perspectives. Also, now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So Lane Kiffin has a reputation in the coaching circles and in college football, and everybody makes fun of big game Lane. They just do. He's 1-11 in his career. His lone victory came at SC when they took on Oregon way back, and he was a 14-point underdog in that game to begin with. But this season, it is starting to be different because historically, Lane Kiffin coached teams are Lane Kiffin teams. They are the complete identity of that football team, and this year, not so much. Jaxson Dart is kind of the alpha dog of this quarterback team and somebody to pay attention to moving forward. He recruited a lot of the athletes that are on this team. He is the leader for the offense and the defense. It is his team. He is the face of the 2024 Rebels. Whether Ole Miss wins 10 games, 12 games, or 8 games, Jaxson Dart is going to own this. And because of that, the pressure that Lane Kiffin puts on himself is not going to be as high, as noticeable, to where Lane, who gets in his own ways in game. You remember in the 2021 Matt Corral game, the get your popcorn ready game, or you remember in the Georgia game to where Georgia just absolutely just overwhelmed Ole Miss a year ago. Those things where Lane kind of put the pressure of him. He's gotten to this statement. He's gotten to this area. And now he needs to make a statement on his direction of his program. And this Ole Miss program, he wants to be a top 5 level team. Ole Miss is 6th in the country in the AP poll. They are right on the outskirts. So that means for Ole Miss to take the next step as a program, they do need to have a victory over a top 5 team. It looks like there's going to be one opportunity, maybe two, over the course of the season for an opportunity to get a top 5 win during the regular season. If Ole Miss makes the playoffs, that's a little bit of a different story. So winning top 5 games and doing that and getting to the playoffs with Lane Kiffin's big game record of 1-11, it would be problematic. Everybody would be worried about big game Lane, and everybody would look for a track record of some kind to prove it. Why do we think he's going to be able to do this when he hasn't in the past? Now, Ole Miss this season is operating at a completely different level than they have been operating. Lane's operating at a different level than he has. They're not uptight. They're practicing in a lighter, kinder, gentler way during spring. They basically did whatever they could to avoid depth charts. They are doing all the stuff that lets you know that Lane Kiffin is not feeling pressure going into the season, despite Ole Miss being a top 10 team. And a lot of that, in my opinion, has to do with Jaxson Dart. Jaxson Dart is the rarest unicorn in college football, and that is a year 3 Lane Kiffin quarterback. And we're going to talk about in the next segment, he's a quarterback that's going to have helmet technology with an offensive coordinator in the booth with a photographic memory and the best play caller in all of college football as well, that you can make changes quickly. All of this is going to help Jaxson. But Jaxson, as the leader, every situation that has been asked of him during his time at Ole Miss, he's answered it. In 2022, when everybody was thinking that he was competing with Luke Altmaier to win the job, Jaxson Dart won that job. At the end of the year, he was starting to come into his own. He had a little bit of a slow go at the beginning, but then at the end of the year, he really came on. And it culminated with a 99-yard touchdown drive when Ole Miss was down by 8 points to Mississippi State. He led Ole Miss down the field in a rainstorm, in a windstorm, all the way down and scored a touchdown to set up a 2-point conversion. Ole Miss tried to get a little bit cute on that 2-point conversion, and it didn't work, but you could see that Jaxson Dart was kind of becoming the dude. Anytime a question is asked, he answers it in the affirmative. In 2023, Lane Kiffin went out and got Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State, somebody brought in to essentially be the quarterback of the Ole Miss Rebels in 2023. Did Jaxson Dart flinch? No. He actually just went out in camp and won the job to where everybody knew it was his job. And he put up some unbelievable numbers in the course of the season where he threw for 3,300 yards, over 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and got weapons with Caden Prieskorn and Trey Harris to get going. And you can see that the next step that Jaxson Dart takes is going to be a big step. It is going to be something that everybody should pay attention to. If the jump from year 1 to year 2 was 2,400 or 2,600 yards or whatever that amount was to 3,364 yards, that's significant. That was like a half increase of the yardage total. Could Jaxson Dart put up a 4,000-yard season this season? Could Jaxson Dart throw for 40 touchdowns and break Eli Manning's touchdown record? We already have a point to where Jaxson Dart, if he does just what we all expect him to do, he's going to walk out of Ole Miss the winningest quarterback in program history, a quarterback, a program that has had multiple Mannings at the helm of their offense. You will have him the owner of 90 to 95% of every record in the Ole Miss arsenal. And because of that, I think that Ole Miss is going to be able to take advantage of this season, even going up against a top 5 level team. He will take advantage of this situation. When you look at players like Caden Prieskorn, who in the Peach Bowl showed exactly what he could do. He had 10 catches, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, complete with a 2-point conversion as well, that set it up for Caden Prieskorn to be the offensive MVP of the Peach Bowl. When you look at Trey Harris, the guy just absolutely took over that Peach Bowl, and he played 9 regular season games last year and still ended up with nearly 1,000-yard receiving and 54 catches and 8 touchdowns. You bring in a player like Juice Wells, who after 2022, going into last season, he was the Luther Burden of that season. The point is, the toys are there. All of the toys are there for Jaxson Dart to have the big number. Whenever you have a coach that is the level of Lane Kiffin as far as an offensive play caller, an offensive coordinator that is very good as well with a photographic memory and access to tablets to watch film in real time to know exactly what's going on. Everything he sees, he's going to remember. And microphones directly into the helmet, helping out Jaxson Dart as well. All of those things are the reasons that Jaxson Dart is the key to breaking that big game reputation for Lane Kiffin. It's not a totally outrageous thought to think that Ole Miss could win multiple top 5 games this year, even after Lane Kiffin is 1-11 in his career. Really, really cool stuff indeed. Up next, could technology be the secret weapon for Jaxson Dart this season? We'll dive into how cutting-edge tools might give the Ole Miss quarterback the edge he needs to dominate the field and all of those toys that he has as well. So stay tuned for that. It's summertime, which means it's barbecue season. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. So you won't have to choose between burgers and hot dogs. You can get both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to even toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. And with over 2,400 brands to buy and shopping at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores or Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, even more, it's time you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every single time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just to try Ibotta, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA at the Google Play Store or at the App Store, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron, with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. They're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Really interesting stuff with all the technology that is at Charlie Weiss Jr. and Jaxson Dart's fingertips this season. It's really no doubt that you see Ole Miss and Jaxson Dart having a really big year, like a 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, really special numbers type year, because this is the way this is going to work. Charlie Weiss Jr. famously has a photographic memory. He read a credit card number from Lane Kiffin, then went home, came in the next day, recited the credit card number back to Lane Kiffin. Photographic memory. That's the point of that. Now you're going to give that guy, that one, tablet technology and film that he can watch in between series to get ready to go. So you can see exactly what defenses are doing to your teams. The play that they stumped Jaxson Dart. What happened? How did they fool you? How do you avoid that happening again? Jaxson Dart has a chance to have a special year because of what's going to be coming in his ear. Charlie Weiss Jr., when he was asked at the Grove Collective Day of Collection on Monday, was excited almost about the use of technology and what can happen. And that tells me that they are hitting a comfort zone, an equilibrium, so to speak, about technology and Jaxson Dart moving forward. Now, the question is, you do not want to overload your quarterback with information. You have to find that equilibrium. You can't be nothing. You can't do nothing, but you also can't do that overwhelming thing that throws the equilibrium out of balance. Jaxson Dart barking cymbals, setting up protections, if he even sets up the protections anymore. Who knows? Maybe upstairs they just talk down. It's like, hey, slide left, slide right, however you want to do it. Hey, we're going to run zone concepts on the left and man concepts on the right. So we're going to tell you which side of the field to look on, because we're going to be able to tell if it's man coverage or not. We've already decided the progressions, and we'll let you know if Trey Harris has one-on-one coverage. It is really simple stuff like that you can do in 4 to 5 seconds with code words for Jaxson Dart going into the season. Again, Jaxson Dart in year 2 was impressive. Here's his number again: 233 for 358, 3,364 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. It's not a situation to where he is anywhere near his ceiling at this point. He had a good year last season. He did. Look at his numbers. 233 for 358, 3,364 yards, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That is without any of these things, these creature comforts that Jaxson Dart is going to have potentially once they figure out how to use them. I'm really interested about this. What is too much information? What is too far? What's the line? The microphone cuts off at 15 seconds, so you need to be done. But Ole Miss snaps the ball usually at about 21, 22 seconds anyway. So we're not at a risk of that thing going off to begin with. So the way Ole Miss is set up, they're still going to have the play calling things just like they always have. What will Ole Miss use this technology for? How will it look? How will Jaxson Dart improve this year using that? And Charlie Weiss, how do you use somebody with a photographic memory watching those tablet technology with a microphone directly into Jaxson Dart's ear? How do you use that there? It's going to be really interesting. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. Until Furman, until Middle Tennessee State, heck, until Kentucky, they're still going to be ironing out kinks in offensive technology communications, how they get everything situated. For Ole Miss to go as fast as possible, the offense has to be fairly simple. You've heard me talk about that. A simple offense means that you're going to be able to do all the signage to get everybody lined up just like normal, and then maybe the technology is just for special codes to give Jaxson Dart those cheat codes for each play. I'm genuinely interested in this whole technology aspect. And Ole Miss is absolutely doing what they can to maximize this technology. You can see it. They are going to figure out how to do this in a way that it makes them better. And whenever you look at Pete Golding, we're going to talk about him in the next segment. He's made a decision as well based off of the technology. So when people say the technology does not matter, or I do not care, or why are you talking about this? Realize that it does, and this is why. Should be really interesting indeed, honestly. Coming up next on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, Pete Golding's move to the booth and why this shift could be a game changer for the Ole Miss Rebels defense. Stay tuned to find out this strategy and why it could give the Ole Miss Rebels the upper hand this season. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can get $5 or bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV's base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Maybe you can use that $5 to bet on the over-under for Ole Miss this season of 9.5 wins, or maybe Jaxson Dart at 1,500 to win the Heisman Trophy. We just talked last segment. While that might not be a horrible bet, now is your chance. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Really interesting stuff. This Grove Collective Day of Collections, to where we got to hear from coordinators, which Ole Miss fans usually only hear from coordinators one time. Coordinators made an appearance at this Day of Collection. And one thing that we found out is that Pete Golding is planning on moving from the sideline to the booth. What does that mean? Well, Pete Golding is really smart when it comes to football. Really smart. Other people looking at stuff do not see things at the same rate that he does. So he needs to be in a place to where he can literally put his eyes on what's going on while the game is happening. That is how you maximize Pete Golding and what he does. When you're going to have a defense that is very, I don't know, explosive at all three levels because, like I said, you have Pete Golding, who is a defensive end whisperer. You have Zach Arnett, who is a linebacker whisperer. And you have Brian Brown, who is a secondary whisperer. Whenever that happens, you want to figure out how to maximize that as well as you can. And part of that is by putting Pete Golding in the booth where he can see this technology, have the communications, and just sit down and concentrate on what's going on. The people on the sideline, you still have Brian Brown, you still have Zach Arnett, you still have Randall Joyner. You're going to be covered on the sideline. Now, with what's going on in that, I am curious to see what Ole Miss's defense is going to do. We heard Brandon Turnage talk about how the defense is actually a little bit simpler with Pete Golding at Ole Miss as opposed to at Alabama. And a lot of that has to do with transfers. Walter Nolan, coming from Texas A&M, 37 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. You have to mix and match with defensive players now in this age of the transfer portal. Huge binders of offense that doesn't exist. Binders of defense that doesn't exist. You look at other players, Princely and Monmielen, 39 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. These are defensive linemen that Lane Kiffin talked about in his press conference on Monday as being another standout again of the scrimmage, the second scrimmage, the last real scrimmage, because the last one is a mock game. And a mock game is nothing but football. Everything but the football is what they cover on the game day. Warm-ups, all of that stuff, exactly how it's going to look. They're doing a walkthrough and a run-through on that. It's not all. Chris Hardy, who was Mr. Conference USA a year ago at Jacksonville State, had 16 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries. You have a situation with only 4 quarterback hurries, that means he gets home. And he's another player that they can use on that defensive line. It's a big thing. So whenever you have somebody that is really good at scheming together the defensive line, when you have somebody that is really good at doing something to scheme for linebackers, can look at what Mississippi State did the last 3 years with Zach Arnett as the defensive coordinator. And Brian Brown, who is one of the nation's leader in interceptions year after year after year. You need to figure out how to maximize that. Now, I probably do believe that is by putting Pete Golding in the booth. I'm sure Pete likes feeling the game. That's why he likes being on the sideline, is feeling what is going on. But we're at this point to where he can benefit Ole Miss football more by being up in the booth, honestly, with Charlie Weiss Jr., who, like we said before, has a little bit of a photographic memory. And the number of analysts that Ole Miss has, there's Lou Spano, there's Joe Judge, there's a lot of analysts that are on the scene in Oxford as Lane Kiffin's coaching rehabilitation center is up and running. You have a chance to be pretty good this season. And a lot of that has to do with Pete Golding moving up and becoming the eye in the sky. One of the things we say all the time, whenever we were video coordinating and filming practice and games and all of that, is the eye in the sky doesn't lie. You cannot lie to it. You cannot take plays off. They know exactly what's going on. Pete is going to get a different perspective. You know how much I love perspectives. He's going to get a different perspective in that press box. Should be really interesting indeed. Having a ton of fun. We have Zach Berry last night. Tonight we have Zach Mareth. Tomorrow we have the SEC football preview this week. They let me sit at the grown-ups table. They're sitting in here having a preview, and it's me, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia all on the call together. And it's like, hey, one of these people have not had much experience sitting in these rooms. But the conference goes through all of the SEC, like through tiers and things like that. And the last segment, by the way, was Zach Blackerby and Corey Burton of Locked On Vandy and John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks and Brandon Olson of Locked On Gators. Turned out apparently was fairly hilarious. But that'll be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. We'll see what's going on there. But yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to take that in. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the #1 Ole Miss podcast. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out Locked On Football. Check out Locked On College Football Podcast with Spencer McLaughlin. He'll get you excited for an exciting season with in-depth discussions and the upcoming games and the ever-evolving landscape of college athletics, from conference realignment to the transfer portal to NIL updates to the new college football playoff. Spencer covers it all. You can find Locked On College Football on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, exciting news. You can now become a Locked On Ole Miss Insider, the best and easiest way to stay updated on all things Ole Miss sports. It's a texting program that sends you notifications for anything relevant that happens in Ole Miss football. Enjoy a 14-day free trial. Experience the future of college football sports coverage. We're adding new perks as we grow, so don't miss out. The link is down in the description, and for those of you watching on YouTube, we will send you to Locked On College Sports right now. Hotty toddy, everyone.